Welcome. I am your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Day, and your boy on Twitter at MMA LOTN. And joining me as always, we got my guy Cody Saftic. You can find him on Twitter at CJ Saftic. And we are here propping you up for UFC Fight Island 7. Which is headlined by goddamn, why is my alarm going off? Goddamn. Which is headlined by Calvin Kattar and Max Holloway. Great start, great stumble right off the bat. Headlined by Calvin Kattar and Max Holloway. Great fight, first fight of 2021. I can't wait to get this going. I know me and Cody were just talking off air a little bit about how starved we are for some UFC action. They made us wait 3 weekends. But we're finally at it. We're getting it going, and I'm happy to do it. The first stream that I'm hosting of 2021 with my guy Cody. Cody, how was your break? How was your holidays? Are you craving for some MMA? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we were on a long stretch of MMA events every single weekend, so it was nice to get a weekend off. You know, it's nice to get 2 weekends off. 3 weeks they gave us off. So, yeah, definitely took the time to hang out with some – I mean, what can you really do during these pandemic times? But yeah, I got some me time, which was nice. And now we're back in full swing because obviously they don't just give you one offering. They give you a show this Saturday. You get another show on Wednesday, and then you get the big pay-per-view on Saturday. So the UFC's, eager to jump back into things as well. And then, as you mentioned, it's a mouthful for like, what are these events anyways? Because like, we're back in Abu Dhabi. It's UFC Fight Island 7, but now I'm seeing the cards promoted as UFC on ABC 1.
Yeah.
So, who knows? With the UFC, they're always changing names. Remember back in the day, we used to be like on Fuel TV. Like, those didn't become numbered events. Like, yeah. So when you see something, it's like UFC 260. You're like, oh, UFC 260. But in actuality, it's like UFC 792. Like, yeah. Anyways, I'm glad to be back at it. And the UFC gave us a decent little offering here. I mean, you're getting Calvin Kattar and Max Holloway on free TV as a little appetizer to the big McGregor-Poirier fight next weekend. It's definitely nice. And then there's a couple other spots as well. On a money line perspective, and I know we're here to talk about props, on a money line perspective, it seems like, some dicey spots. But on the prop side of things, it's like there's some definite juicy plays, a lot of big plus money action as well. So happy to get your take as well and jump right into things.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And yeah, they give us that 3-weekend break, but they're giving us 3 events within the span of 7-8 days. So I'm really excited about that. We do have January 30th weekend off. They do give us a time to second to breathe, and then we're right back at it for February 6th. And then I think they're straight down to like end of March or April. So I'm really looking forward to it. All right, before we jump into everything, I just want to remind you guys, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe below. It really helps out the show. It really helps out the channel as well too. I know you guys appreciate seeing us on a week-to-week basis. So keep us around, and that's the least you can freaking do is just hit that subscribe and like button as well. And lastly, I want to encourage whenever we're going over certain matchups, I'm encouraging questions from you guys as well too. I'll be going through the chat, and hopefully if we get any good questions and stuff, we'll address them during the breakdowns that we're doing. And we just want to get you guys involved. It's a fun show. We got me, we got Cody, and then we got a great group of guys that are always joining us in the chat. So shout out to everybody that joins us every week. 2021 is here, so let's get this thing on the road. So let's start off with our first matchup of the night. I believe we have Jacob Kilburn going up against Austin Lingo. Moneyline odds, we got a little bit of a chalk on Austin Lingo at -220, plus 180 on Jacob Kilburn. I'll kick things off with this. The spot that I like the most, and I already have a bet on, and the line is already gone too. I like the under 2.5. I took a little bit of a shot on that around that plus 115 mark. It's hitting around that even mark now. I'm expecting this to be a little bit of a firefight. Both guys like to throw hands. Austin Lingo a little bit more with his actual boxing. A very technical striker. I like what I see from him. A Fortis MMA product. I love what Saif Sayud is doing with those guys down there in Texas. And then Jacob Kilburn, on the other hand, is more of a one-and-done striker, in my opinion. The guy is a little bit flashy, but he doesn't really throw in combinations much. He likes to like throw spinning shit, likes to throw flying shit, likes to just be in your face, but he doesn't throw much combinations. And we've seen just in his Contender Series fight that he had with Bobby Moffitt, his UFC debut against Billy Q, where he was getting completely out-grappled. That seems to be the best path to victory for most of his opponents. However, I feel like Austin Lingo is more of a striker, so I feel like we're going to see a bit of a striking match here. However, if Saif Sayud wants to get a little bit tricky on us, he may be devising a game plan where it's taking this guy to the ground and hopefully pulling off a submission victory. But in terms of a prop, I think the under 2.5 is a great spot here, even at even money. I think it's a solid spot where we're going to get both of these guys kind of going to war. And if you're giving me 12.5 minutes with guys that like to throw some bombs, I'm totally into it. I kind of whiffed on it when I took Austin Lingo and Yusuf Salal to go under 2.5. However, I didn't expect Yusuf Salal to go out there and just grapple the amount that he did and kind of slow down the pace of the fight. But I'm chucking it again with this Austin Lingo fight, and I'm going for the under 2.5. What are your thoughts on this, Cody?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that you've got two guys that kind of match up similar in the sense that what's their best asset? They want to stand there. They want to let that power go. They're both primarily strikers. They don't really want to grapple all that much. When you look at Austin Lingo, yeah, he was undefeated, comes in the UFC, and then Yusuf Zalal puts a grappling clinic on him. Yusuf Zalal, a guy not really known for his grappling at the time, it was his respective UFC debut, but absolutely just, made a mockery of him in the grappling department. So yeah, he would prefer to just keep this fight standing. Flip side to that, you look at his opponent, it's like all three of Jacob Kilburn's losses are by submission. He does not want to grapple as well. They both show big power. You look at a lot of the tape on them, they're knocking guys out a minute and a half into the fight, a minute in the fight. They've got some 10, 15-second KOs on their records. That's probably the best path of victory. They're going to stand and bang. If they are going to stand in the pocket and bang with each other, then, the under 2.5 definitely looks safe. Now, when you look at Jacob Kilburn, he's never been knocked out, but there's definitely spots where he is being outstruck. It's just eventually they topple on top of him and submit him. So you brought up that Bobby Moffitt fight from Contender Series. Bobby Moffitt, MMA lab guy out of Arizona, he's very much like take you to the ground and grapple. He's a good grappler. He's a good wrestler. He wants to get you down. He wants to chase the neck. The finish of the fight obviously shows the Darce choke. Bobby Moffitt eventually did take him to the ground and submit him, but it was only after he got tired of beating him up in the striking exchanges. He was outboxing him. He's beating him with the punch. Lingo's got big power. If he's landing on you, he's gonna do some damage. And I honestly think that the under 2.5, that's like you're saying, playing it safe. But if you're looking at for something juicy, first fight of the new year, we got the UFC. I want to take a little stab at something. Austin Lingo by knockout is plus 330. Now, when you look at Austin Lingo, not only is he a guy that knocks guys out, he absolutely dices these fools. His two wins, prior to coming to the UFC, the win over Solo Hatley, it headlined that LFA 74 card, right? Headliner in Texas is his own backyard. This is actually his first time ever not fighting in Texas, by the way. Not sure if that's going to matter or not because he's going to go all the way to Abu Dhabi. But he knocks out Solo Hatley in 25 seconds. 2 fights back, that Aaron Webb fight, he knocks him out in 13 seconds. This guy touches you, it's a lot of damage. Now, the problem with Yusuf Zalal is when Lingo's coming in, straight lines always, tries to be the aggressor, tries to be that brute force. So Lal's got really good lateral movement, so he just dodges out. He causes Lingo to try to chase him, doesn't engage him, and then just takes him down. But Lingo's cardio does actually check out because he goes to 3 rounds and he's able to survive. And it wasn't like it was a cardio issue. He just, he got outgamed. Whereas like Jacob Kilburn, the longer he's going into these fights that he's not having his way in, he eventually falls apart. So if Lingo doesn't chase the submission, just keeps putting that punishment on him, why can he not? He's got big power. Why can he not knock out his opponent? And if he does, plus 330 just seems like a huge price tag, right? So something worth looking at anyways.
No, I'm absolutely on the same boat as you. I was going to bring that up as well. I was thinking either Lingo round 1, which is plus 300, or Lingo by KO plus 330. You're getting slightly better value for him to possibly get it within 15 minutes rather than 5 minutes. So I do like that Austin Lingo KO prop. That's probably the best one. I'm playing it safe to cover both results, which is a possible Kilburn finish as well too. So even to get even money for under 2.5 in a fight that pretty much a lot of people are expecting to be a barn burner. Like there's a reason that line went from plus 140 all the way down to even money because a lot of people are believing the same thing. So I'm glad that we're kind of in the same boat for that fight. All right, let's keep this thing moving along. We got a barn burner next time around. We got Sarah Moras versus Vanessa Melo. Some chalk city on Sarah Moras here. We got minus 220, I believe. Minus 220 on Moras, plus 180 on Melo. The over-under is obviously set at 2.5, with the under being plus 295. The one that I don't want to spend too much time on this. It's a fight, in my opinion, that I don't think anybody should be betting on. Let's be honest, but we're here to give people advice. I think the spot that is sexiest to me would be Moras via decision, which is currently at even money at minus 110 as well. Not too much juice there. I don't really see much finishing opportunities for either girls here. Vanessa Melo, very rudimentary with the striking techniques, likes to just move forward, doesn't really cut angles well, throws pretty heavy in her strikes, but usually falls pretty short on those strikes as well too. Moras, we've seen a ton of durability from her. She took a little bit of a whooping from Liana Jojo and then eventually finished her in that 3rd round. How either of these women are still in the UFC is kind of a little beyond me, but I truly believe that this is like a loser leaves town type of situation where Vanessa Melo coming off of 3 straight losses. Not often you see somebody get a 4th crack in the UFC if they're on a 3-fight losing streak. So the fact that she's still in the UFC is a little bit beyond me, but this is clearly a loser leaves town fight. I'm leaning on the Moras side of things. I'm not saying this is the reason she's going to win, but if you actually go through their IGs, it looks like Moras is in the best shape I've ever seen her, and she doesn't have much flab or anything on her anymore. She looks a little bit cut up, and I was kind of surprised to see that from her because notoriously and historically, she looks like somebody that doesn't really come in the greatest of shape, right? But if you go through that IG and give it a look, guys, I think you guys will be a little bit surprised. But I'm not saying that's the reason she's going to win. I'm not IG capping these fights out here, but it's good to see that she's taking it seriously to this extent. But I will take Moras to win this fight via decision. -110. Again, I'm not touching this fight, but that's probably the sexiest prop to me. What about you?
Yeah, you know what? You never want to IG cap a fight. However, as far as women MMA, IG capping fights, it's been going pretty good, right? Gina Mazzani, you're looking at it and you're like, whoa, yeah. She looks in incredible shape. And Jess Rose Clark, the same thing. It was like, damn, this girl's really doing a lot of weightlifting and looks in phenomenal shape. Like, you at least can get a good read of, you're not named the cheesecake assassin by accident, okay? So, yeah, right. There's been a time where maybe she came in a little bit soft, but she's competed against the who's who of women talent at 135 pounds. This is dating back to her time in The Ultimate Fighter, which is something like 7 years ago now. Like,
crazy.
No doubt that Sarah Moras has been around. She's fought in a lot of high-level people, Jessica Andrade included, and doesn't always come out on the winning side of things. But now she's moved from BC and gone to Extreme Couture, right? That's another thing, is that she's full-time in Las Vegas, seems to be in great shape, seems to be, making those strides, but she needs a winnable fight. And they give her Vanessa Melo, which is exactly that, a winnable fight. And so I do like it from that perspective. If you look at Sarah Moras, though, right? So she's got the TKO over Joshua in the fight that she didn't look good in. That's really the only win in a long stretch. And then the other one being the submission over Ashley Evans-Smith. That submission is the only submission victory she's had in like 8 years. And then that TKO over Joshua, same thing. It's the only TKO she's had in like 8 years. So not huge on finishes. Vanessa Melo, meanwhile, 10-8 pro record, right? Abysmal. But of those 8 losses, 7 of them by decision. One time she got TKO'd. It was her second pro fight. And again, it was like 7-8 years ago. So logic would dictate this thing's going the distance, no matter who wins. And logic and the bookies, they're all over it, right? It's -315, fight goes the distance. We're 100% on that. So whoever you're going to take by decision. And if you're leaning with Sarah Moras and you think she's in good shape and you think she's going to push it, then that -110, that's almost even money. Then that's what you go with. But the flip side to that is the Melo by decision, which is decent plus money, actually. And can Vanessa Melo win this fight? Absolutely. Keep this thing standing, box her up. Everybody that's ever been able to stand up with Sarah Moras has boxed her up. Even if she comes in great shape, she's going to rely heavily on getting this fight to the ground. And then luckily for her, all the people who've successfully taken down Vanessa Melo have made her look like a fish out of water. Like, it's a tale of two fighters. But it's women's MMA. It can go either way. It's a close enough fight. I think it's going the distance. But whoever you're going to end up taking, if you want to bet this, and I don't think I'm going to, you're going to try to juice it up by taking that decision for sure. The Moras straight money line, not good. That is a not good price tag. Moras by decision, it's even money. Okay, I like that. Melo, she's already the underdog, but if she's going to win this fight, she's not knocking out Sarah Moras. She's certainly as shit not submitting Sarah Moras. So if Melo was to spring the upset, it's going to be a close decision. It's going to be a close, greasy decision. You may agree with or you may not agree with, but it'll be close enough and she'll get the nod. So you can chase some good plus money there. But honestly, that's a degenerate play. This is the kind of fight you just pass on.
I'm absolutely there with you. And another note, actually, this is the second time we're going to be seeing, I believe, Sarah Moras fighting in Abu Dhabi. She did fight Liana Jojua at UFC 242, which was in Abu Dhabi as well. So she has a little bit of experience there. Maybe not on Fight Island, but at least traveling the world and going across the pond and actually getting experience over there. So, we both got Sarah Moras here. Decision -110, probably the best spot here. But if we're being honest, and we're all degenerates here, but let's not get too degenerative and bet on this fight. So, all right, let's keep things moving along. We got David Zawada versus Ramazan Ameev next time. Talk about decisions. We got my guy Ramazan Ameev here, who just plays fights as safe as you could possibly play them. The last time he actually got a finish was 7 fights ago, where he finished, I believe it was Mikhail Falcao, former UFC brawler, who got cut, I believe, after some crazy accusations against him or whatever it was. But Ramazan Ameev, Anaconda choked him over 7 fights ago. But since then, he's going out there and just methodically outpointing his opponents. Going out there showing decent striking, and then, pretty much just wet blanketing these guys, getting them down and doing some good work from on top, keeping them down, and staying active enough that the referee doesn't really stand them up in those positions. Now, his last fight against Nicholas Stolze gave me a little bit of pause. Like, we saw him get clipped a little bit. He didn't get dropped. We saw him get clipped. We saw him get close to not getting submitted, but like he got into some deep submissions from Stolze. Obviously was able to get out of those, but you don't want to get into those close submission scenarios against a guy like David Zawada, who's coming off a victory over Abubakar Nurmagomedov, where he, I believe it was a triangle choke finish that he got there. I think this is a quintessential Ramazan Ameev decision waiting to happen, where he's just able to, pick his spots, striking defense. on point. The guy has this weird frame where he has this long torso where he's able to use that in and out movement, even just kind of lean back and get out of the way of these shots from his opponents and then come back with beautiful counters of his own. So I like what we see from Ramazan. My only issue here, though, is he fights a little bit too closely with his opponents. I mean, he for a minus 255 favorite or whatever he's at his money line, that's a little bit too much juice for a guy that makes his fights as close as they do, or as close as they are. So I do like him to win this fight. I do think he has a striking advantage here over Zawada. Zawada does pack a little power in his punches as well, so that's something that he's going to have to worry about. But I think he is able to, grind him up against the cage, slowly drag this fight to the ground, and kind of just suck the wind out of him and just win a decision here. So I believe the line on, let me pull it up actually. It is Ramazan Emeev via decision is minus 115, even odds, just as we've gotten the last couple of fights, especially with Sir Moras last time around too. So I like Ramazan. I think he pulls off another efficient performance. Going to be a little bit too close, especially for anybody that has money on him, but I think you're still going to end up getting the decision here with Ramazan. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Ramazan and me. They're always going to be close. They're always going to be a little tight. They're always going to be a sense of like, oh man, could he do a little bit more? And hopefully the judges are seeing what I'm seeing and that they're getting that cage control, and that's what's winning the fight. But the tough part about betting against David Zawada in this spot is if you were to just break down the singular elements that make up a mixed martial arts, it's like, well, who's the better striker? It's like, David Zawada is a better striker. We've seen him go out there. We've seen that he packs some good power. He's been in striking battles with guys like Danny Roberts. It was a fight of the night, split decision, loss effort. But I mean, he gave an okay account of himself. The Jingliang Li fight, I mean, he dropped Jingliang Li, and then Jingliang Li got back up and dropped him. And it's a nasty body kick that takes him out. But it's like late in the third round, and these guys are slugging it out there. And as far as his grappling goes, he is also the better grappler than Ramazan Emeev. Grappling in the sense of just straight jiu-jitsu, right? He's got better jiu-jitsu than Emeev. You've seen him with the triangle choke over Abubakar Nurmagomedov. You've seen him in other spots where he's got good grappling as well. He likes to attack lots. He doesn't just accept position off his back. He'll throw up lots of triangles, lots of arm bars. One thing, though, is that when you're throwing up submissions off your back, what you're not doing is trying to get back up. You're trying to submit the guy. And you need to get back up against Ramazan Emeev because he's just so cool with wet blanketing you. He doesn't care. Maybe you are the better striker. Maybe you do have better jiu-jitsu. But if I'm leaning on you against the cage, I'm winning the position. And if I do get a few takedowns in this round, you pop back up, sure. But I'm the one getting the takedowns. Listen, it's cage control. And it's not like he just has to get you against the cage. He can take you down in the open field. But the thing is that he's not trying to submit you, and he's not trying to lose position. He's just looking to tick time away at the clock. If you're a football fan, it's like what he does is the equivalent of the run game. You're just trying to kill the clock and pick up some points. And that's what he does better than anybody. So if you're going to bet a Ramazan Emeev fight, again, surely you're going to take it by decision. He's not somebody that goes out there and finishes you. He also has got good durability as well. So Emeev straight up, not a great money line pick. But Emeev by decision is minus 110. Like it's pretty well even money again. Now, let's say Emeev, just like that Antonio Rocco Martin fight, where it's just, or the Anthony Rocco Martin fight, where it's like, man, he looks flat. His striking is no good. He doesn't get the takedowns, and as a result, he loses this. Well, it's like, well, he's durable enough to lose by decision. So the fight goes the distance is minus 170, which is a sub minus $200 play, or a minus 200 play, which I'm cool with it. And if Zawada wins, it's like, yeah, maybe he just outstrikes him in points, throws up some submissions. The judges like it. It does go to decision. It is one of those close Emeev decisions, only they end up going with the German fighter this time around. Minus 170 fight goes the distance. That's nice. If you are backing Emeev, you do think he's the superior fighter. Well, he's not fighting. He's not finishing anybody. And it's not as if he's fighting top 10 guys as well. Yeah. He's fighting low-level guys. And I don't need to disrespect the Nicholas Dolces or the Stefan Sekeliches of the world, but they're just, it's not that upper echelon of UFC talent. Flip side to that, actually, David Zawada also fought Stefan Sekelic and knocked him out in the second round. Just blitzed the guy, right? So if there are levels to this, we see one guy, Zawada, is the finisher versus Emeev who's just going to look to slow things down. So I think the move that you go for is fight goes the distance at minus 170. If you are Emeev back, you take that Emeev by decision at minus 110. And then I did talk about it on Dogger Pass. If you're the type of person that just loves to throw out those big plus money parlays, it's like Emeev does have a tendency to slow down, right? Because he exhausts himself in these exchanges where he's just wearing on you. It tires you out. But as a cost, it does tax his body as well. So if Zawada can just stay in the fight long enough, and late in the second, maybe in the third round, he might be able to shock him and land that submission, right? Also, Emeev, one of his 3 pro losses is by triangle choke. It's like, again, it's 11 years ago. So what do you take away from that? I just mean Russian fighters have been known to get caught in triangles, and Zawada seems like he's got a good one. So it's something like 23-1 on the third round submission for Zawada. But I think more so than not, that submission doesn't happen late in the third round, and it ends up just going the distance minus 170.
I think if you do want to decide with the Zawada side, maybe Zawada by submission plus 585 is the spot that you want to go with. I'm just not so sure about that. My issue with the Meave here is, though, he's only had 5 fights in the UFC, and the guys that he's fought and beaten, he's supposed to go out there and beat the Sam Alveys, the Alberto Minas, the Stefan Sekuliches, the last guy that he just fought. I don't know why it's escaping, Nicholas Tosa. But then when he goes out there and fights an established guy and actually has skill like an Anthony Rocco Martin, he comes up short. So I kind of lump Zawada into the Sekuliches and the Stolces, but we'll have to see once we actually get this fight. All right, let's get this thing moving along. We got Justin Tafa versus Carlos Felipe next up. We got the money line is minus 190 on Carlos Felipe, plus 165 on Justin Tafa. And Carlos Felipe is a kind of a guy that I've done a complete 180 on. Like coming into the UFC, I was like, this guy is just wants to go out there and just have a fist fight. He doesn't really care about anything technical or anything like that. But once you actually see his fights with Sergey Spivak in his last fight against Jorgen Castro, right? Like you see him actually fighting pretty well. Like, yeah, he wants a fist fight, but he's rolling with punches and he's using good footwork. He's cutting angles and he's actually doing good stuff. He has great footwork as well for a heavyweight his size and with his type of physique, right? Going into this, I thought like, okay, maybe it's a really bad matchup given that Justin Tafa has a great kickboxing background or whatever you want to call it. And he might be the more technical striker. But once you actually run the tape, like Felipe could absolutely go out there and outstrike this guy if he wants to lay on him too or push him up against the cage and take him down. That's another path to victory here. And I think that's where we'll see this is Tafa kind of gassing himself out in that first round, maybe round and a half or so, and Felipe literally just making him punch at air. So I like the over 1.5 here. But with that said, there's that little area of that 2.5 minute mark to the 5 minute mark of the second round that I think that Felipe could possibly get the finish here. I think the round 2 prop on Felipe, I will get the correct number right here, is plus 575, and that's a line that really very much intrigues me. I think that's a spot that Felipe could absolutely take advantage of. Tafa, we've seen him struggle in the past against guys that were able to bring a great MMA game around to him, but for some reason he's still able to go out there and just knock these guys out and knock them dead, no matter how behind he is in his fights. But I don't think he's going to be able to do that against a guy like Felipe, who shows great durability, ate some great shots from all of his opponents that he's fought in the past. And Tafa, yeah, he might have that death touch, but I don't think it's going to get to that point where he's going to land clean enough on Felipe. And the longer this fight goes, the worse it gets for him, especially with the pace and pressure that Felipe brings to the game. So I'm on the Felipe side here. I think minus 190 is not that bad of a spot in the money line. But in terms of talking about a prop, I think the inside the distance, if you don't want to go with the Ron prop or just Felipe round 2, if you want to get dicey, go for round 3, but I definitely think he gets the finish. I don't think Tafa has the gas tank to survive the full 15 minutes. Yeah, I don't think he's going to have a knockout to bail him out here. So I'm going with the Felipe side and I'm going with the finish. I think you do have a different take on this, so I'll let you get into that.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go the other way on this one for sure. With Thick Diaz, I mean, we love the style. We love that he stands in front of the opponents and he kind of baits them, and he's got that. But that style, that peppering style, it's not like sitting down in your punches and knocking guys out. It's more so just volume, and that volume could most definitely knock guys out. But it's going to be later. And for a guy that's a heavyweight and a large heavyweight, Carlos Felipe is a large heavyweight. He's not a guy that packs a ton of power per se. So, I mean, we know his story. He was signed to the UFC back in 2017 and doesn't even fight, fails a drug test, and they give him a 2-year ban. So he comes back 3-year ban, I think. Comes back last year, and it's like, yeah, the Sergey Spivak fight, man, this guy's cardio is questionable. He completely gassed. In the third round, he's done his ground game's no good, and the power didn't really translate. While he was suspended from MMA, he did actually take a pro boxing match, and again, he won the pro boxing match by decision, right? So he's not even knocking out these canned boxing opponents they line up in front of him. As far as his MMA record goes, he does show 6 knockout victories, but I mean, most of the guys, it's questionable if they exist or not. Like, they don't even have record. You can't even click on their name or anything, right? He does have the win over Sandro Bezerra, I believe. Sandro Bezerra, if you've ever seen him fight, 36 years old, and like 3 of his 4 pro losses are by knockout, right? I mean, if you hit this guy, he's going to crumple over, and that's what Carlos Felipe did. So I completely understand the argument that maybe Justin Tafa just topples over. He's so tired, right? But we actually just saw that in Carlos Felipe's last fight. Jorgen de Castro was more tired than any human being I've ever seen. He was so tired, and yet he would just walk in and clinch Carlos Felipe, who inability to just cut an angle and get out of there, inability to do anything. The ref resorted to having to warn Jorgen de Castro to stop clinching. in an MMA fight. Now, this is not a boxing match. He had to stop warning him for clinching in an MMA fight. Carlos Felipe could not knock this man out, even though he was a zombie of a man. A person who had a 2-6 amateur MMA record, Jorgen De Castro, and yet he's not knocking him out. I do agree he's getting better. I think he's getting more comfortable. I think he does have the cardio advantage over Tafa. Tafa's got that one big power, right? He's the classical kickboxer from New Zealand that if he does land on you, it's going to be a lot of damage. But beyond that, like, what has he got in his game? Now, I know we've seen him absolutely get folded over by common opponent Jorgen De Castro. But outside of that, I'm hoping he's more so one of these tough Samoan guys like Mark Hunt, and that it's a lower pace fight where Thick Diaz, Carlos Felipe eventually just, picks away at him, does pick up the decision victory. And looking at it from that perspective, I mean, it's still pretty good plus money. Fight to go the distance is plus 125. Carlos Felipe to win a decision is plus 220. So again, the two fights in the UFC you've seen from Carlos Felipe, both have gone to decision. Fights that he's had prior to coming to the UFC doesn't showcase a whole lot of power. And then the flip side to that and his opponent, we're just hoping that Justin Tafa, everything ends in the first round, right? So we know that everything ends in the first round. But beyond that, Justin Tafa's brother, Junior Tafa, is a pro kickboxer for Glory, right? So he's a well-credited Glory kickboxer. His uncle is a New Zealand kickboxing legend and fought Mark Hunt in K1 back in the days. So kickboxing is their thing. And kickboxing is a lot of decisions, right? It's a sparring match. So what I'm hoping here is that you've got boxer versus kickboxer that doesn't lead to the knockout, and we get a plus 125 on that fight goes the distance. And then furthermore, I am going to take Carlos Felipe to win said decision, and that would be plus 220. So not my most confident prop on the card, but I do think that there's some value there. And I know everyone just expects heavyweights to always hit that under. Maybe you're right. This is like our first real disagreement so far of the year. But I'm thinking I'm going to go the other way and thinking that this is one of these slower paced bogs of a heavyweight fight.
I'm not with the whole understanding that I don't think that it's going to happen under 1.5. I think that over 1.5 is a solid spot too, but that got absolutely steamed. It's currently sitting around minus 190. I was seeing some people saying it's around that minus 150 range, which is something I'd be a little bit more comfortable with. But yeah, I'm expecting Tafa to be huffing and puffing later in this fight. And hopefully Felipe is showing us a little bit more improvement and a little bit more aggressiveness to, one, stay off the cage, and two, actually go out and finish this guy. But yeah, great fight. And by the way, first time I've heard him referred to as Thick Diaz, and I absolutely love it. Love it. I'm gonna keep that one too for sure. All right, let's keep things moving along. We got Yanan Wu going up against Joselyne Edwards. If most people remember, Wu was actually supposed to fight Betch Correia. Betch Correia pulls out. I believe she has a surgery or something like that. And in steps Joselyne Edwards, who, once you run the tape, quite impressive. I'm actually impressed with what I've been seeing with this woman. Only loss as of late was to Sarah Alpar, who is also in the UFC and absolutely got murdered by Jessica Rose Clark last time around. But if you go back and watch that fight, that was a very, very close fight. It was almost like a Felipe versus Jorgen De Castro fight, where Sarah Alpar is just pushing her up against the cage, trying to get the takedown, where Edwards is just landing the damage. And I'm not sure what the judges were really seeing. Like, if we're talking about judging criteria, it's damage, then cage control, right? And if that's the case, Joselyne Edwards wins that fight, right? So not the nicest thing to see her get pushed up the cage as much as she is. I don't think that's the way that Wu Yanan's going to go about this, though. That's the difference maker here. My issue with taking Edwards is the potential volume that we might see from Wu Yanan, which is, in her last fight, she threw out, I believe it was 200 plus strikes, which is absolutely insane against Mizuki Inoue. Landed over 100 of them as well, too. So when you're talking about women's MMA, probably not the greatest amount of power, even though Joselyne Edwards last time around beat the poor soul out of the woman that she beat. Pamela Gonzalez, probably one of the worst beatings. I felt horrible watching that fight just because that woman deserved not to be in that fight at all. But I think Joselyne Edwards, 25 years old, has a ton of potential, has a ton of room to improve still. But what we've seen up until this point, I'm finding very impressive. Great distance striking, great kicks, great Muay Thai. I think she's just rounding out her game right now. And I think a fight against a girl like Wu Yanan, who is young in her own age as well too. I think she's like 24 or 25 as well. Both of these girls are progressing at the same time, but I feel like I got to give the edge to Edwards, who seems to pack a little bit more power and a little bit more damage behind her strikes. And I think that's what the difference maker is going to be here. So the spot that I like the most is Edwards to win this fight via decision. And that would give us a plus 260, which is very, very juicy if I'm not mistaken. I see a lot of people are saying that Edwards could possibly finish this fight. Could happen, but I feel the safer route to take would be the decision property. I'm kind of surprised actually to see it at that plus 260 range. What's your take on this fight?
Yeah, I honestly think the same thing. It's going to be a close-ish fight. It's going to go to the distance, and it just depends who's landing more eye-catching shots. I actually kind of ever so slightly decide to go with Yanan Wu over Edwards, just because a couple things, right? First of all, you see her in the UFC, and everyone just loves to laugh at that Gina Mazany fight. But I just want to point out that the Gina Mazany fight she was 21 years old, right? So you're 21, you're making your UFC debut, you're up a weight class at 135, and you got out-muscled by Gina Mazany. So people love to laugh at the loss, but again, it's a 21-year-old fighter. Now she's returning to the UFC. She's a 24-year-old fighter. There's a lot of experience and a lot of growth that she's made. So she she loses to Gina Mazany. Yeah, we all get a good laugh out of it. Then the Laura Mueller fight, she actually comes into the Laura Mueller fight as a plus 305 underdog, because we're all still laughing from the Gina Mazany fight, right? She goes into that fight and she catches her with the first round armbar. She looked like she made improvements, especially in the grappling. The next time you see her against Mizuki Inoue, and again, a lot of people are writing her off. She comes in again as an underdog, not as much of a sizable one, but comes in as an underdog and looked infinitely better, man. Was landing the shots, landed, a good amount of significant strikes. It ends up being a close split decision, which she did in fact lose, but it looked like there was some growth there. Now again, she's still young. She takes that fight. This is like 14 or 15 months later. So since the Inoue fight, you've not seen her for 15 months. And rest assured that all these Chinese prospects that keep propping up, all they're doing is training. All they're doing is fighting. They're these next generation talents. Now, they haven't fought the best levels yet, and they're not going to develop. They're not going to be, polished at 22, 23, 24. But they don't do anything. They're state-sponsored. They're government-sponsored. The country's behind them. They just train day in and day night. And that's why you're seeing a lot of them prop up. Now with Wu, she was somebody that fit that mold. She turned pro at like 16 years old. She has 2 wins over Bo Meng. Bo Meng's the only fighter to ever defeat current UFC champion Weili Zhang and is also the current ONE FC champion. Bo Meng's a total badass. Wu's beaten her twice. And that was years ago. So again, maybe what you've seen in the UFC is not the most impressive, but coming off that 15-month layoff, you're going to see a much better version of her. Now with Joselyne Edwards, it's not that I hate anything in particular about her, but she is taking the fight on a week's notice. And whereas she's from Panama, most of her fights are in Panama, against the absolute bottom of the barrel level competition, she does move to the States eventually. That's good. That's what you need to do and go improve your training. But she moves to Iowa. Like, she's not training at an optimal level. Now you're in Iowa. She did lose the fight to Sarah Alpar. It was a 5-round fight. It was a split decision. She gave an okay account of herself in that fight. But that's a fight where you had a full camp. You're getting ready for a title fight in LFA. This is a week's notice against someone who could come in with just a plethora of new tricks. She's been on for 15 months. And so I wouldn't be so quick to write off Wu, who the UFC loves this type of a fighter, because if they do win, they are super marketable in China, and that's a demographic they want to break in. So you know what? I'm going to say that probably the smart move is pass and see what she looks like after this extended layoff. But beyond that, we're on the same page with those decision props. I initially looked at Wu, and Wu by decision was plus 125. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to bet this fight. I'm probably going to hit a pass on it. And I was like, you know what? It is going to decision. And it is going to be a close decision. So Wu's plus 125, but Edwards is plus 260.
That's juicy.
And I'm not gonna lie, man. That is a nice. So as much as I just sat here and talked to you about why I think Wu's probably gonna edge you at a close decision, it's like 260 staring you down the barrel, baby. You should probably pass. However, I'm not gonna lie. That is some supreme value, and I could most definitely see that hitting as well.
This is the genius of live streaming, is just seeing Cody Saftic talk himself through a bet and then just completely flip on the other side on the at the end of it. I freaking love it. I love it. I love it. One thing I will note about Wu as well, a cornerman that we always seem to see in her corner now is Marlon Sandro, which is a weird pairing in my mind. If most people remember, Marlon Sandro, Bellator fighter, I believe he was a champion over there back in the day as well. Yeah, he even rewarded her blue belt after she tapped out Lauren Mueller that night as well too. Very, very weird pairing. I don't know why I still can't get over it. Every stream I do this week, I'm gonna note that. I don't know why, but I just find it very, very weird. All right, let's keep things moving along. Next up, we got Nassourdine Imavov versus Phil Hawes. We are seeing a lot of love on Imavov come in throughout the week. I think he was roughly around, he was plus 155 when the line had opened. Now he's down all the way to plus 110, and we know the verdict on Phil Hawes. The guy, pretty much a one-round fighter. He's changing camps like I change clothes on a daily basis. Like, this guy freaking starts off with Jackson Wink. He's the prospect at Jackson Wink. They want to shove him down our throats on The Ultimate Fighter. He loses to Andrew Sanchez, I believe. Doesn't even make it into the house. Then the Contender Series gets deaded by Julian Marquez after he starts huffing and puffing in that second round. So after that fight, he leaves Jackson Wink, goes over to, I believe, Bellator, and he has Tiger Shulman in his corner. And then after that, he goes to Brave, has a couple fights over there, and then he shows up in the Contender Series again. Now he's with Sanford MMA. So now it seems like he's finally, hopefully it hasn't even been a full year, I think, since he's been at Sanford now. But he's at Sanford now. He's doing good work down there. I like the style that we saw from him in that Best Aya fight, and I'm not entirely sure if that's a new Phil Hawes that we're going to see, which is kind of a more methodical, try to chop down the leg, try to get the opponent thinking about something else, and then bring those bombs over and try to close that distance. That guy was like 6'6". How he's able to knock him out the way that he did was absolutely beautiful. But we need to see more from him. We need to see him after that round mark, because we don't know what it like. Well, actually, we do know. We've seen him in the second and third rounds, and his cardio just does not look good at all. Now, I'm hoping that we see a more technical side of him where he goes out there and chips away at the leg of Nassourdine Imavov, right? And tries to render him immobile in that aspect and then get his hands going a little bit later in the fight. Probably not what we're going to get, though. He's probably still going to go out there and try to wing these bombs and try to knock this guy out, because Imavov doesn't really have the greatest striking defense, in my opinion. The guy holds his chin up a little bit high, has a little bit of that tall man defense syndrome, if you want to call it that, where he just keeps his chin in the air and thinks he can just lean back and get out of the way of these shots. But Phil Hawes has a lot of explosiveness. I feel he could definitely close the distance and land on the chin of Imavov here. And one more thing I do want to note about this fight is Phil Hawes 5 weeks ago went over to Switzerland for this fight to train with Volkan Oezdemir, who's another Sanford MMA guy. And I think that was a great move on his part to actually go over there, get acclimated to that side of the world, not have to make the trip over the pond and while you're weight cutting and doing all that type of stuff. So very, very good on him to actually, take that extra step to go out there and get acclimated first. Again, I can't bet on a guy that has horrible gas tank and has that narrow path to victory, which is just trying to find that chin and knock somebody out. But when he finds that chin, he is knocking somebody out. That's the thing. It's almost a Francis Ngannou type of thing. He might not have the greatest technique or greatest gas tank or anything like that, but he's going to be able to go out there and knock you out if he lands on your chin. So the jury, in my opinion, is still out on Imavov. I need to see more tape on the guy. We saw his fight with Jordan Williams. Closer fight than it should have been. Jordan Williams gasses out. Imavov takes over. I like Phil Hawes. I think he gets the first round knockout. That's the prop that I'm kind of looking at, which is currently, Phil Hawes round 1 plus 275. Phil Hawes via KO is plus 135. So I don't mind it. I just don't think that Imavov is the guy that's going to be able to expose Phil Hawes. Like, I was the one that went out there and faded Phil Hawes last time and paid for it immediately against Jacob Malkoun. Like,
why would you bet Jacob Malkoun?
Don't. Let's not talk about it. This is 2021. We're turning a new leaf. We're not doing this anymore. But yeah, if I were to fade Phil Hawes, I should have done it with Imavov here. I just don't feel like this is the spot for some reason. So I got Phil Hawes first round knockout. Plus, like I said, Phil Hawes round 1. If you're going to bet Phil Hawes at all, that's probably the way to go, which is Hawes round 1 plus 275. What's your read on this fight?
Yeah, it's crazy that if you're going to fade Phil Hawes against Jacob Malkoun, then you got to fade him against Imavov. It's like you're getting 5 times the opponent. Like, this is the spot we want to go with. Jacob Malkoun, the narrative there is that he's Robert Whittaker's BJJ coach. It's like, man, he had never done anything in his MMA career. He was largely overmatched. And yeah, you see what Phil Hawes can do now. Phil Hawes is a physical specimen. The guy is absolutely shredded. He's ripped, fast twitch muscle, very quick, closes the distance fast, massive amounts of power. On top of all that, I mean, he went to Iowa Central Community College, which is the same college as John Jones, Colby Covington, wrestled on the same team as them, has that wrestling background. As you mentioned, goes to Jackson Winklejohn, and everybody's raving about this guy. Wow, this is our next John Jones. He's an absolute stud. Tries out for the Ultimate Fighter, as you mentioned. He's the favorite to win the tournament, and yet he's not in the house yet. And you know what? A little bit of bad luck, right? Because he loses to Andrew Sanchez, who won the whole Ultimate Fighter tournament that year. So a little bit of bad luck. But again, John Jones is talking about how this guy wins rounds in the gym over him, and he was unable to get into the house. That doesn't matter. Signs with the World Series of Fighting. He's still a super prospect. Takes on 37-year-old Lewis Taylor. Comes in as the good big favorite again over Lewis Taylor. And then after that first round, it's the same thing. After the first round, completely gasses. Lewis Taylor submits him. The fight on the Contender Series. It doesn't take this guy long to get opportunities because he looks the part and he's got everybody saying how good he is. But this is not a 25-year-old prospect that needs to learn a little bit. So these are the bumps in the road of a fighter. This man's 30 years old at this point, right? So comes in the Contender Series against Julian Marquez, who is very, very raw, man. Very raw, and literally just withstands the first round and head kicks him unconscious in the second. It's like Phil Hawes doesn't have a great chin. He doesn't have a great gas tank, and he doesn't have a very great heart. If you put the pressure on him, he's going to fold. And that's where I think Imavov gets the stoppage, is that Derek Williams took a beating. Williams went out there and you had to throw the absolute kitchen sink at him 5 times over. He was willing to take everything. And he had a good story, right? He's coming from Contender Series and he's diabetic and he can't cut weight. But Jordan Williams, man, think about this. When he was on the Contender Series, he fought Ramazan Kurmagomedov, right? He came in as a plus 300 favorite against Ramazan Kurmagomedov and lost a questionable split decision. Williams pushed him. Jordan Williams is for real. Then he wins the next Contender Series fight, comes in as an underdog again, pulls out the victory, and gets the Imavov fight, and gives a good account of himself. But he had to take the beating. Once he got tired, he was taking a beating, but he took it. When Phil Hawes gets tired and you start to touch him up, he doesn't take the beating. He topples over once he gets tired. And so his whole career has been busted prospect, in my opinion. He's 32 years old now. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. He's dicing fools. He just won a big fight in Contender Series, and he won his UFC debut. So it looks like momentum's on his side, and people have now marked him as the favorite. But let me just dissect that for you really quick, right? If you look at Phil Hawes' 5-fight winning streak, the first one in Bellator, cut stoppage over a lowly ranked opponent. No big deal. It's good. Get back on track. Dominic Schroeder, 11-7, journeyman record. Should have been in there with Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes beats him, as expected. Yuri Fraga, 13-10 pro record. Shouldn't be in there with Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes wins as expected. The Kazmarov Bastayev fight on Contender Series. Bastayev 6'6", as you mentioned. That's the only thing he's got going for him. That is not a good fighter. That is a tall man who is there to get knocked out, been knocked out a bunch of times. And sure enough, it's a nice highlight reel win for Phil Hawes. And then he has Jacob Malkoun, the lowest level of opposition in the UFC's middleweight division. And yeah, he defeats this guy. And he defeats all 5 of them in the first round. So that's why people are forgetting this perception of like, oh man, he's gotten over those cardio issues. It's like, how do you know he's gotten over those cardio? You don't, because he's finishing those guys in the first. So your assessment's not far off in that maybe he does go out and knock out Imavov in the first round. That's his path to victory, is he knocks out Imavov in the first round. My thinking process on that is it's not going to happen because Imavov's a guy with a good chin. We've seen him hit. We've seen him rock. He rolls with it. He continues on. He's young. He's 24 years old, and he's out of Fight Fit Paris, the gym that gave you Francis Ngannou, the gym that gave you Taylor Lapilus, the gym that's given you Cyril Gagne. This is a top-notch striking gym, yet he's Dagestani by way of, now he's in France. He's got some wrestling, he's got some grappling, but he likes to strike. He likes to snipe guys. He likes to take them into some deeper waters and put that pressure on them. And I think eventually that's what's Imavov's going to do to make Phil Hawes succumb to it. So looking at it, Imavov by KO is plus 450, right? I really like that because when Hawes gets tired, Imavov's going to have this chance to take him out. Again, Julian Marquez knocked him out, and Julian Marquez is not the striker that Imavov is. And he was very young and green at the time, and he's able to catch Phil Hawes. But you know what? Imavov's not just a striker. He's only got 3 KO wins and actually 4 career submissions. So maybe he does catch him with the submission. And if that's the case, I'm not going to chase that submission prop. But just the Imavov inside the distance. So screw the KO at 450. Just Imavov inside the distance is still plus 230. Phil Hawes is going to lose a fight. Phil Hawes ain't going to lose a fight by decision. No. He's going to win inside the distance. He's going to lose inside the distance. I don't think he wins this fight. Therefore, I think he's going to lose. Therefore, he's going to lose inside the distance. So sign me up with Imavov. And you know what? He was underdog money for us last time out. Pulled the upset over Williams. He ended up going off at minus 135. A lot of late money came in. I would expect the same thing. He might go off as the favorite here. But currently, he's the underdog. And if you want to chase that inside the distance prop or buy KO prop, very nice plus money play.
I think something that I just stumbled upon right now that it's kind of sexy to me. Fight won't start round 3 at minus 140 is not too bad. I'd like a slightly better line, but I'd be surprised to see this fight actually hit round 3. Either a Hawes round 1, or he's probably going to be huffing and puffing a little bit too much for Imavov in round 2 and get finished there. But yeah, one thing that this fight is going to guarantee is violence. Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah, the last thing I want to throw on there, you mentioned that the camp switch is all here and there, right? So this is the bad omen curse. My eye, bad omen curse, right? Rashad Evans goes on record and says, I'm working with Phil Hawes one-on-one, very close. And this guy, physical specimen, athletic specimen, and he shored up his cardio issues. I had to rewind the interview 3 times just to make sure it wasn't the interview from 3 weeks ago. He was talking about Greg Hardy, where he said the exact same thing. Dude, this guy's a physical specimen. He's putting on everybody. His cardio issues are and it was just like, no. And it wasn't just that cardio issues weren't there. Striking did look phenomenal for the 3 or 4 minutes. And then beyond that, it fell apart. That's what happens to Phil Hawes. And it wasn't just the cardio that let him up. It's like once the heat got put on Greg Hardy, once he got punched in the mouth a few times, kind of looked for that backdoor. Tybura capitalized. I'm hoping Imavov's there to capitalize. But I'll admit, Imavov's 24. He's not that savvy Taibura who's seen everything twice over that can capitalize on a spot like that. If he gets bum rushed and gets stung a few times early like Marcin did, then yeah, maybe he is the guy that falls over. But so far, chin checks out. So last thing I got to put on there is the Rashad Evans curse. If Phil Hawes loses, it is officially a curse. Right now, we're speaking of it like, is this a curse? But we're about to see come Saturday.
I'll definitely keep an eye on that, and we're definitely going to hit on that the next time around if he does end up losing that way. All right, let's keep things moving along. We got the next fight coming up. It is the curtain jerker for the main event. The first fight on ABC for the UFC is going to be Punahele Soriano versus Dusko Todorovic. This is a great fight. I'm really much looking forward to this one. It's a great way to kick off the ABC era for the UFC. So in terms of odds, we got -155 for Dusko and +135 for Punahele. This one I'm getting a bit of a harder time to read on. So originally my read is Punahele. I think, not the greatest striking style in terms of being that guy that rushes forward and throws bombs. Questionable gas tank due to the fact he's only been to a decision once. He won the decision, showed some good fight IQ in terms of dragging that fight to the ground against Jamie Pickett and kind of just laying on top of him. Unfortunately, not able to do the most amount of damage from there. We did see some decent jiu-jitsu off of him in the earlier parts of his career where he's dropping these guys and going for the rear naked choke. Showed some fluidity in those movements as well too. But I feel like Dusko could not possibly. I think he is absolutely the hardest opponent that he's had to fight to date. Dusko looks great on the feet, has great karate type of style with his stand-up, very, very much in and out with his movement, very light on his feet too, shows a good clinch game like he did against Teddy Ash in that Contender Series fight, did the same thing almost to Daquan Townsend before he put him out in that second round. But for some reason, I feel like I don't think he's going to be able to pull that off against Puna here, where he's going to be able to hold him up against the cage or overpower him in those sense. I think that Puna might have the strength advantage here in those clinch exchanges. I'm not 100% sure, though. I can't get the best read on it myself. The prop that I was looking at was if I do believe that Dusko potentially has cardio issues. We haven't truly seen it, but I feel as though he does have that, and Puna could definitely bring that out of him. So maybe even a Puna decision, which is currently +450. That's quite juicy to me. The over 1.5 is very, very nice as well too. Even though it's a little juiced at -165, I think both guys have solid durability, and we'll see them past that 7.5 minute mark of this fight. But I just can't get the best read in terms of how these guys truly match up. So I'm hoping that you're going to be able to help me out here and let me know what you're thinking and what you think the best prop for this scrap is going to be.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, you got two young prospects. One's 28, one's 26. They're both undefeated, and yet they're matched up on a UFC card. Like this is the tough times. Not everybody's going to get an easy opponent, and this is taking two undefeated prospects. And unfortunately, one of them is going to have to move forward and prove their worth. So which one's it going to be? With Soriano coming on the Contender Series, doing the tape study before he was on Contender Series, man, this guy looked raw, like green, very, very green, very raw, clearly athletic, clearly got a lot of power. But it's like it's gonna take a while to put all this all together. Now he's training at Extreme Couture in Las Vegas, and he's not managed by Ali Abdelaziz, but works for Ali Abdelaziz. We'll put it that way. And this guy's gonna get favorable matchups thrown his way, and he's gonna do very good. Contender Series against Jamie Pickett. Jamie Pickett's proven to have some durability at the very least, right? And yeah, sure enough, I mean, he goes out there, he wins against Pickett, but you see that his gas tank's not there. He's so used to knocking out fighters. His prior wins, right? 31-second win at Titan FC, 45-second win at V3 Fights. Jonathan Patty fight went 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes in the first round, but they're all really quick finishes. So Pickett just is the first guy to last a few rounds. And then you see where Soriano, that greenness comes out of him, that haven't been the decision, have poor cardio. Against Oscar Pichota, like, again, he went out there and he put it on Pichota. It's 3.5 minutes into the first round. It kind of looks like he's slowing down a little bit, but he gets the first round knockout. Who knows what happens if he goes to a second and third round? I don't think he's got great gas tank. So where you mentioned that you think Dusko Todorovic might have a suspect gas tank, maybe he does, but I don't think that's an advantage for Soriano. I would actually put their cardio probably in similar territories. Mm-hmm. If anything, Todorovic has actually gone deeper into fights. He has a couple decision victories. He's a little more proven. The other thing, when you look at Puna Soriano, it's like, who's he defeated? Oscar Pichota, not a really UFC level talent opponent. Jamie Pickett, again, not really a UFC level talent opponent. Dusko already shows wins over Michel Pereira in a fight that, dude, he bull rushes Michel Pereira and then just bops him. Like, big power, does move on a straight line, does look raw, does look green himself, still very young. But, I mean, he's fighting a higher level. Teddy Ash, I mean, you and I know Teddy Ash better than all, a former middleweight champion and a former light heavyweight champion for Unified MMA in Alberta. And, man, he beat up Teddy pretty good, put a big cut under his eye. The Daquan Townsend fight. Daquan has quite literally nothing other than durability. Fentanyl couldn't even kill the guy, right? The guy's got some durability. And yet, man, he hit him with some absolutely nasty shots standing. And when Daquan actually did take them, he just whips him to the ground and then pounds him out on the ground. It's just like, I like what I'm seeing out of him. I think there's a definitive improvement out of him. He's still only 26 years old. This does look like a legitimate prospect that hopefully they bring on the slow way. I don't know that Soriano is that slow build opponent, but I do like what I see out of Dusko. With Soriano is like, once he defeated Pachota, they tried to book him with Eric Spicely, very low level opponent, but he pulled out due to injury. Then they tried to book him against Anthony Hernandez. Not really like a super low level opponent, but has had no success in the UFC and has looked really low level. And again, Soriano pulls out due to decision. They spent all summer pumping out events in Vegas. And this guy's in Vegas at Extreme Couture. Didn't compete on any of them. He's quietly sat out 13 months. So like we were talking about Wu Yanan earlier, it's like, you know what? She's young. That 15 months off, she's going to make a lot of improvements. Soriano probably will have made a lot of improvements. But the body of work is going to go to Todorovic. He's fought in the high-level experience. He's fought deeper into fights. He's fought a lot more recently. He's just the more experienced guy. He has equal amount of power as Soriano. And his chin looks good enough that if he can take Punahele's first round, strikes, then second and third round, when Soriano starts to tire a little bit, then that's when he should be able to take over. He does really good against the cage controlling guys, just like he did against Teddy Ash, that I think that he might be able to squeeze it. So we're actually on the same boat for two of the three things, okay? Todorovic versus Soriano over 1.5, minus 165. I like it. You like it. We're on the same boat. Todorovic, Soriano goes the distance, plus 155. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think these guys do it. But you got Soriano by decision plus 400. I went Todorovic by decision plus 300. That's where we differ on this one. And it's crazy to think both guys got a lot of power, and both guys have not been tested. So, like, why are we taking this one by decision? But I think once they both tire a little bit, they're both going to look to conserve, and it'll become a lot more grappling-oriented, and that'll just slow it down. So I got this fight going the distance.
I'm kind of bummed that they're putting up two prospects like this against each other so early. Like, get them up against some other guys that have been in the UFC for a little bit. Let's see what they're truly made of, and then maybe a little bit down the road, if both of them are still around, we can actually get them to fight each other. But now they just want to go out there and be like, hey, let's cut one of the, not cut, but like let's bring one of these prospects down a notch. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great fight, even if it does end up hitting the judges' scorecards. I think we're going to get some great moments here. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got the highlight Rio sensation, Joaquin Buckley, going up against Alessio Di Chirico. Definitely a handpicked opponent here. You're talking about a guy who's on a 3-fight losing streak, just like Vanessa Melo from earlier in the card. You got somebody who's on their 4th straight fight in the UFC, coming off a loss now. So with Alessio, I feel like maybe the second or third toughest opponent that we've seen Joaquin Buckley fight as of late. You can throw Logan Storley in there. You can throw Kevin Holland in there as well too, right? And the issue that I have with Di Chirico, like even going into taping this fight, I was thinking, okay, this is possibly a good spot to fade the hype of Buckley. This could be the guy. But once you start running the tape and you see how easy that Di Chirico is easy to kind of just have on his back foot, he kind of concedes position so easily where it's just like, okay, I'll let this guy dictate the pace. And you don't want to let a guy like Joaquin Buckley dictate the pace, because he's just going to trudge forward the entire time, throw bombs. And he is kind of undersized for the division, but he's so dense, thick, and able to generate so much power that he's able to, have that longevity in this 185-pound division. Now, we haven't seen Di Chirico hurt, KO'd or anything in his fights up until the last thing that we've literally seen from him, which is getting head kicked to the dome by Zach Cummings, and pretty much losing the fight just off of that. It was 1-1 going into that third round, and then we see him pretty much lose it in the last second of the fight. And I truly want to chalk that up to him kind of just be like, all right, let's do that Max Holloway thing where we just throw bombs and hopefully I'm not the one that drops or anything like that, and we just give a great finale to this fight. Unfortunately for him, he's the one that gets dropped, and he's the one that ends up losing that fight. Up until that point, though, he shows great durability throughout his career. Like, the guy can take a shot. So my sneaky play here, and probably my favorite prop on the card here, is going to be Joaquin Buckley to win this fight via decision, which currently sits at, I do want to pull it up, I believe it was around that plus 260 mark. We got Joaquin Buckley via decision, plus 265. I think that's a great spot here for Buckley, as I feel like he's going to be the one moving forward the entire time, throwing his bombs, maybe not landing the cleanest, but at least making it aesthetically pleasing for the judges to give it and score it towards him. So I feel like we'll see that from Buckley. I don't think I don't think he's ever going to live up to the hype that he produced for himself after that Impa Kasanganay fight. And I truly believe people are overblowing his potential and his skill level. But I just don't think that Chirico is the guy to go out there and spoil the Joaquin Buckley fight. There will be a fight in the future that I look to fade Buckley, but this is not the one. I don't think that Chirico shows what needs to what you need to bring to the table to beat a guy like Buckley. He doesn't have that smooth striking style, the ability to cut the angles as sharp as other opponents have, like Kevin Holland in the past. And the only thing that will really give him is his durability. So I like Buckley to win this fight. I think he takes it via decision. I wanted to find a reason to bet Chirico. I couldn't even find a prop that I like for him either. So I'm going with Buckley decision plus 265. I love that spot.
Yeah, we're on the same page once again on this one. I think with Joaquin Buckley, you made a couple of points I want to address, right? First of all, that he'll ever relive up to the hype of that Impa Kasanganay. How could you? That was the sweetest KO I've ever seen in my entire life. And you know me. I've seen, there's that saying like 10,000 hours. Like I've seen 10,000 fights. I've seen 10,000 hours of fights. I've never seen a KO that sweet, any sport. Unbelievable. That's going to be his reputation for as long as he lives. Now, the UFC trying to bank off that, and they're just trying to give him these winnable fights. Jordan Wright, the Beverly Hills Ninja, that's as easy as a fight if you're ever going to get. And yet, he didn't look overly great in the first round. He knocks him out pretty much right at the tail end of it, and then that leads to an early KO win in the second round. But, I mean, he's not – the Kevin Holland fight's the outlier. The Kevin Holland fight, he just goes at him 100% because he knows he's taking the fight on a week's notice. He knows his cardio is probably not up to check. He knows his best path to victory is to try to knock out Kevin Holland as quick as he can. So he tries that, and he's huffing and puffing the whole time, but he keeps throwing. If you look at the other fights in his career, he does like to take his time. He knows he's got big power, and he likes to set up that big power. And so you see in his subsequent fights with Impa Kasanganay, the first round, he's not pushing the pace. In fact, he actually, by fight metrics odds, or by their numbers, he actually got outstruck 22-21 in the first round. It was a close-ish first round, but he's not putting it on him. He's going through the motions. And then the second round, he's winning the fight. He won the first round, even though he got outstruck technically. He won the first round. The second round, he's winning. And then the greatest KO of all time just comes out of left field. The Jordan Wright fight, anybody who was going to fight Jordan Wright on that night in the UFC was going to knock him out. Buckley ended up becoming the beneficiary of fighting Jordan Wright. Knocks him out. To think that he's now just this monstrous KO guy, it's wrong. It's wrong. He's got way less power than Chaos Williams. And then speaking of Chaos Williams, that's just another example of a guy knocks out two guys really quick. And now if he touches you, you're dead. Tanner Boser, right? Tanner Boser's not a knockout guy at all. But he wins two fights in the UFC by knockout. It's like, this guy's got hot hands. It's like, doesn't got hot hands. Happen to knock out a couple guys, right? Buckley loves to throw heat. He does have big power, but he's not reckless with that big power. And so a guy like Alessio Di Chirico, who's super risk adverse, he's not trying to engage you. He's usually backing up. He doesn't mind giving up rounds. He doesn't mind fighting in a lull. The Zach Cummins fight is very, very, very frustrating. Again, I did have Di Chirico in that spot. The first round, he just gives it to Zach Cummins. He doesn't even attempt to do anything, just gives him the round. In the second round, he greases it. It's a close round. He won the second round. You're right. It's 1-1 going into the third. The third round, he loses because of the head kick. However, it's important to note that he does well the first 4 minutes of that round. That's what was going to win it to him. The last minute, he's tired, and he's allows his opponent to take over in Zach Cummins. Zach Cummins might have legitimately won the fight even without the knockdown. That's just what solidified it and secured it as a 29-28 from all three judges, making it a unanimous. That's what solidified it. Outside of that, Di Chirico's just got these issues in his career where he just doesn't quite do enough. And if you're not going to quite do enough, you need to have good cardio and just keep that pace for three. I don't know that he has it. So I am going to bank on his durability, saving the day for him, and that Buckley goes out there. He can take he leads the dance. He's got the pace. He's setting the better strikes. He's outworking him. But Di Chirico's not the kind of guy that's going to run in there and take a risk. And Buckley's not the kind of guy that's going to go out there and blitz him and take a risk. And as a result, he's just going to clearly win the fight. Last thing I want to mention, Di Chirico, you look back at the Oluwale Bangbase fight. Bangbase is a very scary looking dude, right? And pretty much has no skill set other than if he touches you, you're dead. And Di Chirico does the same thing. He eventually knocks him out, but he just does not engage him at all. It's an awful, awful fight. Only thing worse than the fight is his post-fight interview after that fight. I have not liked Di Chirico since. And as you mentioned, 3-fight losing streak, and now he turns up on a UFC main card against a hot prospect who's just diced his last two opponents in, highlight reel fashion. How does it make sense? But there's the clear narrative there. They're building up Joaquin Buckley coming at the expense of Alessio Di Chirico. But I'm going to agree with you. I think that he is going to win, but he's going to win a decision. And so anyways, just the over 1.5, right? The over 1.5 to me seems very good. It's minus 165. That's not bad. Going back to the same thing, Soriano versus Todorovic, the over 1.5 is minus 165. These guys are going to fight for more than 7.5 minutes. But Buckley Di Chirico goes the distance plus 135. I like it. If Buckley ends up being a fraud, like you said, I really want to fade him somehow. I want to fade him. If he is a bum, then you're covered. 135. It's still dog money. Fight goes the distance. But I think he's going to get the win. You agree. You think he's going to get the win. We're actually both looking at that. You know what? Maybe he's not that KO king that everyone keeps making him out to be. Maybe he is okay with picking up a decision victory. And if that's the case, then we're looking at plus 265. It's a very nice price. If you need any other reason to think that maybe Buckley is going to not knock this man out and win a decision and get that 265, just note that he one time went to decision with a man named Stacy Bacon Jr. So Alessio Di Chirico certainly got a shot at least just lasting 15 minutes, all right?
The one angle I do want to address here too is that Di Chirico is definitely going to know that this is his last chance in the UFC. If he comes out on the losing end here, he's definitely going to get cut. So we don't know how that's going to play into his mindset or his game plan going into this fight. But yeah, he needs the dub, otherwise he's out of here. But could it be any more obvious what the UFC is trying to do here? You're giving a guy on a 3-fight losing streak to the hottest prospect, well, second hottest prospect. Give some praise to Hamza Chimaev still, but you give Joaquin Buckley, a guy coming on off a 3-fight losing streak, couldn't be any more obvious. So hopefully he doesn't stun the UFC masses and go out there and pull off the upset. All right, let's move on. We got 3 fights left, and we got the return of Santiago Ponzinibbio, who we haven't seen in over a year now. Last time around, we saw him against Neil Magny in I believe it was his main event against or in his hometown as well too, or at least home country in Argentina. Goes out there and batters Neil Magny and eventually finishes him in that, I believe it was 4th round. Now he's had a bunch of infections and injuries and stuff to deal with over that amount of time, and he's coming back against a decent opponent. Jingliang is not, he's not horrible, but not the greatest either. But this is a very, very tough fight for Santiago, in my opinion, especially to be at minus 300, well, minus 290 now, favorite. I think it's very, very dicey to go out there and play the money line here on Santiago. The angle that I like here the most, and obviously it's gotten steam throughout fight week, is the over 1.5. I personally made a play on it at minus 165. It's all the way up at minus 210 now. I think these guys, they're known to be kind of barn burner fighters, but I was kind of surprised that the odds makers set it at 1.5 and not 2.5, because more often than not, the fights are definitely going to a decision, or at least over that 1.5 round mark. So kind of surprised there was that 1.5. That's the spot that I like the most. I think we'll see them exchange combinations. They both have some decent durability as well too. Jingliang, I believe Santiago, the last time that we seen him finish was one of them was absolutely to Lorenz Larkin. I'm trying to recall it was Lorenz Larkin the last time he got finished, but that was over 5 years ago. Same with Jingliang. The last time we got finished was over 5 years ago, and he got put out by, trying to remember the name off the top of my head, Keita Nakamura, but that was a submission. So never gotten finished via punches, and that's kind of the game plan of a Santiago Ponzinibbio here, is the striking. He has great leg kicks, great Muay Thai overall, but I think a lot of people are putting a lot of stock in his fight against Neil Magny and making him out to be this crazy killer. But when you really start to go back and look at some of this tape, like he's having close fights against guys like Mike Perry, who technically definitely are not on the same level as other opponents, right? So I think the hype on Pons is being a little bit overblown, and mixing the factor that he's been off for as long as he has and everything that he's had to deal with up until this point, I think it's going to be tough to truly back Pons here. But if we get even, I'd say 75% of the skill of Ponzinibbio that we've seen in the past, I think he could cruise to a decision victory here. So the spot that I like the most is the over 1.5. Even if you don't like that juice at minus 210, the fight starts round 3 at minus 145. Isn't that bad a spot either? And then Pons via decision plus 195. But that injury and all that stuff is just too much for me to look over. So in terms of picking a side, I'm not going to pick a side here, but I definitely feel like this will be a more extended fight. And I do like the over 1.5. What's your take on this one?
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't get an angle for any of the prop bets on this fight. I think that looking at the straight money line, it's off, because Santiago Ponzinibbio, even though he's on a 7-fight winning streak, and even though he has some notable victories, including Neil Magny in that stretch, yeah, man, he's been off for like almost 2 years, and he's coming back as a 34-year-old man, which I know is not super old. I just mean in the grand scheme of things, when you leave the sport at 32, you're already technically on the backswing. 30, 31 is the prime of top 15 guys in the UFC. It's not a huge backswing, but taking off 30, 32, 33, those are like the last prime years of your career. Coming back at 34, is he reinvented? Does he have a whole bunch of new skills? I don't know. If anything, he's got a lot more ring rust. He didn't have great cardio to begin with. He is hittable. He's had eye issues. There's a lot to not like about him when they tell you he's minus 280. There's enough question marks to be like, geez, I don't really like that. Then when you start looking at like, okay, you know what? Fight goes over 1.5 rounds. You mentioned that. And Jingliang Li's super durable. And Ponzinibbio is no slouch. Who's blowing him out in less than 7.5 minutes? Nobody, right? But it's minus 210. So it's not a good price tag on the fight goes over 1 round. Okay, well, let's look at fight goes the distance. Plus 110 versus fight doesn't go the distance, minus 140. Here's the problem there, right? Jingliang Li shows cast iron chin, but his fights are so chaotic. He's had 12 fights in the UFC. 7 of them feature a knockdown. 3 of them feature both guys getting knocked down, which very rarely happens in a fight. Jingliang Li's managed to do it 3 times. In that stretch, you look at, he knocked out Diego Lima, badass. Keita Nakamura drops him and then submits him, but drops him. He also dropped Keita Nakamura. That's a double knockdown fight. Him versus Bobby Nash. Yes, Michigan's own Bobby Nash. It's a double knockdown fight. Bobby Nash seriously stings him in the first 2 minutes. And then he comes back and he defeats Bobby Nash, right? You look, he drops Zach Otto. Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews not a striker. Jake Matthews, a very one-dimensional power grappler. Drops Jingliang Li twice. Then you look at, of course, David Zawada. It's a double knockdown fight again. They both knock each other down. So dude's got a great chin. But like, dude gets hurt routinely. Someone eventually is going to capitalize. I don't love this fight. And he's got a very reckless style, man. He's dropping you. You're dropping him. He's putting it on you. All of a sudden, it's the 3rd round, and you're huffing and puffing, and you've been off 2 years, and this guy's still coming at you. And you know what happens? Alessio Dos Santos. You look at that fight again, and it's the same thing. He's way faster than Jingliang Li. He's more technical than him. And the longer the fight goes, he starts getting tired. And the leech is called the leech for a reason, man. He sucks the energy out of you, sucks the blood out of you. And all of a sudden, when you're huffing and puffing and you're tired, he's reckless because he relies on his chin a little bit too much. That's why he's okay with getting dropped, but he just keeps putting that pressure on you. So he's a live dog, but I kind of think Santiago Ponzinibbio is the better mixed martial artist. And everybody at ATT saying he's in incredible shape and this and that, and you want to buy into it, but the money line's off. The over 1.5 is minus 210. I don't like it. The fight to go the distance is still only plus 110. I think as far as like a prop version of this, I think I pass. I can't give you that's the move right there. It's like this fight could go many of ways.
If you got a more active Pons, and he's like, his last fight was 6 months ago, I'd be a little bit more comfortable playing that plus 290 or whatever it was for him to win via decision. I think that's the spot that I'd go with. But again, the totals are probably where you want to go here. All right, let's move on to the co-main event. And before we do that, just a reminder, please hit that like and subscribe below for the odds channel. Again, huge support to you guys. We hit up to 230 live viewers already. You guys are freaking awesome for coming out on this Thursday evening to support us and watch this fight. I know you guys, or watch the stream. I know you guys love watching me and Cody break down the props for you guys. So we're happy to do it every Thursday. Actually, the next one is going to be on Monday since we got that Wednesday fight card. So just remember program scheduling, Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be back for the next propping you up. All right, let's get into this co-main event. We got 2 vets. We got Carlos. Actually, you know what? I want to start this off as the ghost of Carlos Condit against the ghost of Matt Brown. Both guys up there in age, up there in experience, and up there in terms of their, just their fighting styles. So the way that I'm looking at this, I truly believe it's a 50-50 fight. I believe a lot of people are really reading into the durability issues of Matt Brown, which obviously they are true. He does have issues where he gets cracked by some of these guys that have some serious power, whereas Condit, in my opinion, doesn't really have that power. He's more of the last time he finished somebody was Thiago Alves, and that was off of a broken nose where he had a beautiful, I believe it was a beautiful elbow, and the clinch would just crack and broke the nose of Thiago Alves. They eventually end up stopping that fight in between rounds. Before that, Martin Kampmann in 2013, where he finished him in the 4th round, and that was kind of like a Max Holloway type stoppage, where it was just an accumulation of strikes and not really like a one and done type of thing. Now, I think the easiest path to victory for Matt Brown here is clinching, getting this guy to the ground, and kind of just beating him up that way. We know how terrible Carlos Condit's takedown defense is. probably one of the worst in the UFC, bar none. And Court McGee, god damn, what a lackluster performance last time around. Absolutely playing to a T how Carlos Condit wants his opponents to play this fight, which is staying at kicking range, staying at a range that Carlos Condit is able to do his masterful work, which is just kicking you from the outside, switching positions, throwing his spinning shit, whatever it is. Letting Carlos Condit get comfortable in there at that range is not the way you want to play these fights. And for some goddamn reason, that's exactly what Court McGee did, played right into his hand. And it just, in my opinion, exaggerated how good Carlos Condit has been looking as of late, because he just played a Carlos Condit type game. In my opinion, I think Matt Brown is not going to allow him to play that game. I think he's going to be able to get in his face, make him uncomfortable, clinch him up against the cage, maybe take him down a couple times, and just not let him get comfortable. And that's the main thing when you're fighting Carlos Condit. Don't let him get comfortable in that kicking range. And that's where I think Matt Brown truly takes this fight. He's just going to stay in his face and not let him get set up to get his combinations off or anything like that. A lot of people are giving attributes to Carlos Condit's jiu-jitsu. Last time he submitted somebody 13 years ago over Carlo Prater in the WEC, not even in the UFC.
Good win, though.
It's been a long time. He did have a close armbar attempt against Michael Chiesa. Chiesa pulls out of it. And, Carlos Condit's like, damn, another one that I missed right there. So I don't think he's going to go out there and submit Matt Brown. It is a little bit of a concern because he is offensive, but I don't think he's going to complete anything like that. And I don't think he has that one punch. Like, he could probably head kick him and knock him out, just like we saw with Chirico. The only time we've ever seen him drop was a head kick from Zach Cummings. Carlos Condit does have some great head kicks in his arsenal as well too, but I don't think Matt Brown's going to let him fight at that range that will let him get that kick off or let him get that knockout blow off. And we've seen in the past before Matt Brown having issues with his body. He's gotten dropped with a bunch of body shots in the past too, so that's a bit of a concern here. But in my opinion, this fight's a 50-50 fight. And the spot that I like the most, and the props that I'll give to Carlos Condit, is his durability. It takes a lot to put Condit out. It's been a long time since we've actually seen him finish. I'm not even sure if he's been finished.
Never.
Exactly, never been finished. Yeah. So the line that I'm looking at is Matt Brown via decision is plus 410. And I freaking love that line there. I think that we're going to see that pace and pressure from Matt Brown, keep pushing him up against the cage, drag him to the ground, make it a dirty fight. You can say all you want in the pre-fight interviews in terms of this fight being a barn burner. This is going to be a great fight. This might be one of my last fights, so I want to go on a bang. But at the end of the day, you want to secure that extra paycheck. You want to secure that win bonus, and he wants to go out with a victory. So I think that Matt Brown wins this fight via decision. Plus 410. I'm all over that shit. I don't think Carlos Condit has turned this new leaf because he goes out there and beats freaking Court McGee in a fight that just McGee played right into his hands. So what's your thoughts on this one? I'll stop ranting about it, but I truly feel like Matt Brown wins this fight. What about you?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go the other way on this one as well. I'm going to go with Carlos Condit, and I kind of think that he might be able to spring the TKO victory. So a couple things, right? When you talk about Court McGee is the betting favorite going into that fight, and how is he going to defeat Carlos Condit? Doing the exact same thing that everybody else does to defeat Carlos Condit. Take him to the ground and he'll grapple this guy. Unfortunately, he opts not to do that because he wants a fun and exciting fight, and he has a bit of a personal relationship with Carlos Condit, and he just wants to make it an exciting match, and it does not play to his hand. You got to take this guy down. You got to wrestle him. So when you have Matt Brown, like, what does Matt Brown do? Does Matt Brown take guys down and wrestle them for 15 minutes? No, Matt Brown stays in your face and brings the heat to you. He is one of the most exciting fighters, bar none, that has ever competed in the UFC. But it's taken its toll on his body, man. This is a guy that he's almost won as many fights as he's lost, and they're all entertaining. But he dishes out a lot of damage, or it gets dished out on him. And he's won a lot of fights, like the Eric Silva fight or the Tim Means fight, where he's taking a beating, he's taking some damage, but he wills it back and he brings it back together. Now, in 2016, he goes on the record after the Jake Ellenberger fight and gives one of the most depressing interviews I've ever seen. This is 2016, right? And he talks about, just want to get you the exact quote, because again, it's fucking depressing. I had a concussion last year, first time in my life. This is 2016. Says it's the first concussion of his life, right? No fun, really serious. I wasn't finishing sentences to my kids anymore. I would actually get up and fall over. That's when my wife told me I had to go to the hospital. I would literally get up and just fall over. Things like that happen all the time. Made me realize this sport is for real. It ain't just fun and games and a paycheck anymore. He's 36 years old when he makes that quote, and he had just gotten knocked out by Jake Ellenberger, who was a body kick finish, right? But I mean, he did take some big shots in that fight as well. That's in 2016. Then he takes some time off. He does defeat Diego Sanchez in a CTE creating performance of his own. And he does defeat Ben Saunders, right? A guy who's been known to get knocked out a lot. But if he doesn't knock you out in the first round, he slows down massively. And you saw that in the Miguel Beza fight, where again, when you're an older fighter, your power is the last thing to go. Rocky Balboa, baby. And yeah, he hits Beza and he hurts Beza, but there's a massive speed discrepancy. And as soon as Beza shakes it off and recovers and starts to hit Brown just starts slowing down. He's really hurt at the end of the first, and then sure enough, he ends up getting the tables turned on him and gets knocked out. Brown's 40 years old now. His best days are long behind him. That style of stay in your face and just push at all action pace for 15 hard minutes and gas tank that goes on for days. Like, I don't think he has that anymore, right? Actually, after he gave that interview, he took a year off. He came back to the Donald Cerrone head kick. Rick, you were in the building for live, I'm sure, as any Toronto fight fan was. And it was like you heard the clunk off his head, man. Like he was done. Then he's talking about, wasn't going to re-sign a contract, and they were checking him for CTE. But he gets the big win over Diego Sanchez. It's a great moment. And he follows that up with another quality victory as well over Ben Saunders. It's a nice moment. It's like sometimes you got to ride off while the going's good, and Brown opted not to do that. And they matched him up with a young killer in Miguel Beza, and he didn't come out on the other side. So now you got two aged veterans, right? Carlos Condit's clearly no spring chicken of his own. You also mentioned the whole, the head kick. Carlos Condit got a nice head kick. Carlos Condit one time head kicked GSP in the 4th round. He's very tricky. But beyond that, Carlos Condit is the natural born killer for a reason. He is a finishing machine, and he loves, and I mean loves, to go to the body. He works the body better than anybody. Matt Brown's always had a soft body. That's something that you definitely got to keep your eye on. The other thing is that, you have Matt Brown, who potentially has durability issues, coming off a knockout loss, versus Carlos Condit, 40-plus pro fights. WEC fought the best guys in 2 generations, right? Has been finished 1 time. His knee blew out against Tyron Woodley, right? Well, off that leg kick. Not a real finish. This guy is as cast iron gets. So how do you defeat him? You choke him out. Matt Brown is a better wrestler. Matt Brown does have better jiu-jitsu. There is most definitely a path of victory that involves Matt Brown just taking him down and submitting him. But I think he's going to fall into the Court McGee mindset of like, dude, we're the co-main event on a nice UFC card. The fans that are not really in attendance want to see a great fight, and I'd love another 50 G's in my pocket. 2 aged veterans. Nobody wants to see a grappling match. Let's go out there and put it on. And at this stage, in a striking battle, you got to go Condit. Condit's never really let you down in a pure striking battle. He lets you down all the time, and you mix a little striking in there. But if Brown fails to do that, and certainly fails to do that for 15 minutes, like maybe he does it for the first round, but is he going to submit Condit in the first round? Okay. Is he Damian Maia? No. And if he doesn't submit in the first round, he should have a little bit of trouble. So honestly, this is a really fun fight. This is a good fight. This is most definitely worthy of a co-main event. This is the people's main event as far as I'm concerned. But I'm going to have to go with Carlos Condit, the guy that has traditionally always had the higher upside. He's achieved a WEC world title. Matt Brown's never fought for a world title. He fought Georges St. Pierre in a very thrilling 5-round fight. He's defeated guys like Nick Diaz. He's fought the highest of the high level. Matt Brown has had some fun fights against guys that are no longer in the UFC, right? So anyways, keep it with a grain of salt, I guess. So I'm going to go with Carlos Condit.
I remember like around the time I really got into MMA, Matt Brown was just that guy's like, who is this guy? And then he slowly just transformed himself and even got, I think the pinnacle of his career, you could say, is his main event against Robbie Lawler, where they main evented a fight night. Absolutely crazy when they actually had that fight put together. And the one thing that I do want to bring up before we move on to the main event here is Matt Brown fighting Wonderboy Thompson, lands 5 takedowns. No, he's completely outmatched on the feet. I'm hoping that he comes in with the same mindset here, where he's like, I'm not beating Condit in a striking match. I think everybody, even his mother's going out there and be like, hey, hon, please don't try to strike with Carlos Condit.
The fight was 8 years ago. Him and Thompson was 8 years ago. He's 32. He's in the prime of his life. But now he's 40.
But I mean, in terms of knowing stylistically what fight is ahead of you, to know that you're not going to go out there and outstrike Wonderboy Thompson and go the wrestling route, I feel as though hopefully he's smart enough to know, okay, I'm not going to outstrike Condit. Let's go the wrestling route. And hopefully his cardio is able to hold up. He just turned 40 a couple days ago. His birthday was less than a week ago. So he just turned 40. He's now a 40-year-old man. We'll see what it is. All right. Let's move on to the main event here. We got a great main event. I can't wait to get into this one. I'm wondering what your stance is on this one, but I'll kick it off first. Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar. What do we got to line at? I know it's been moving a lot. We got -150 on Holloway now, +130 on Calvin Kattar. And the spot that I'm looking at the most here is the Calvin Kattar side. I think he actually gets it done here. Now, I'll bring up a couple points. Now, talking about Max Holloway, his last couple of fights, obviously, he lost to Alexander Volkanovski. A lot of people can say what they want about that last decision. I personally think Volkanovski still won that fight. But this is the first time he's fighting somebody the same height, if not taller than him, since he fought Cole Mellor way back in 2015. Now, this is the first time he's also fighting somebody with the striking and the cardio to maintain over 5 rounds compared, or the level of striking and the cardio to maintain over 5 rounds compared to guys like Jose Aldo, who starts blowing his wad after 2.5 rounds. Frankie Edgar, who, he pretty much sunned him that entire fight and didn't allow him to even close any of that distance. The Dustin Poirier fight, that's a fight where we saw somebody going strike for strike with Max Holloway and landing the more damaging strikes. And even though Max Holloway outlanded him ever so slightly in that fight, the judges obviously, everybody scored that fight for Dustin Poirier. There was no controversy whatsoever, and it came down to the damaging shots. And that's where I think the difference maker here is going to be with Calvin Kattar having the more damaging shots, having the more aesthetically pleasing performance to the judges. If he doesn't end up getting the finish, I think a finish is live too. Even though Max Holloway's never been finished, I feel like this is the first time he's fighting somebody that he can't get away with that just lean out of the way of type of striking defense that he has. Calvin Kattar is going to be able to catch him on one of those instances, right? I think Holloway's great. I like his progression in terms of on a round-to-round basis. He picks up his pace. He picks up his pressure more and more. That's where it is a little bit of a concern for me with Kattar, because he hasn't really dealt with anybody like that in the past too, right? But I feel like with his technical striking and the way that he approaches his fights, he should be able to maintain his level of striking, land the damage, maybe drop Holloway a couple times or rock him. It's crazy. The amount of times that we've seen Holloway rocked but never actually dropped and recorded a knockdown against is insane. But I saw my guy MMA by the numbers drop a tweet a couple of days ago that Max Holloway has absorbed over 900 strikes, which is absolutely insane. The guy's 29 years old and taking that much damage. At what point is his chin going to give up? At what point? We don't know. It's going to happen, but we don't know at what point. But stylistically, the way Calvin Kattar matches up, it could be a rough night for Max Holloway, who's going to just, like, he normally just relies on kind of trading in the pocket with some of these guys and then just leaning out of the way. And that's the striking defense. You're not going to get away with that with a guy who's going to be able to reach you with his punches when you're trying to, evade strikes in that manner. Now I'm seeing the approach that people are going to be, look, Holloway started implementing leg kicks in his last fight against Volkanovski. I think that was more of a game plan type of thing to combat the leg kicks of a Volkanovski. That whole fight, anytime Volkanovski threw a kick, Holloway returned. It's like he just wanted to match him and then up him a little bit just to look a little bit better in front of the judges. Now, I like Kattar here. I think he's live for a finish too. I think that finish, if it comes at all, probably rounds 1, 2, or 3. We know Holloway's legendary cardio and his ability to pick up the pace later in fights. So the longer this fight goes, the more tense I'd be if I was a Kattar backer. But I truly think that he is live for a finish. I think he could do some damage on Holloway here, who is truly very hittable. Very, very hittable. Like I said, 900 strikes absorbed over his UFC career, which is absolutely insane. This guy doesn't have much of a technical aspect to his striking defense. Like I said, he leans out of the way of most of his shots. He's not going to be able to do that here against a guy like Kattar. Now, I'm not saying it's because of the height that Kattar's going to win this fight, but I think that's a bit of a factor that Holloway hasn't dealt with since he fought Cole Miller. And how good of a striker is Cole Miller? You know Cole Miller. Yeah. Tell me how good of a striker Cole Miller. Exactly. You can't even freaking say anything. So, I think Kattar is definitely live here as a dog. I'm not saying Holloway's washed. I still think he's a high-level opponent. I still think that he has the capabilities to go out there and fight for a title again. He's only 29, but I think stylistically, this is a very difficult matchup for him. So I like Kattar. I think he's live for a finish, but even plus 130 as a dog here, I think you're getting some solid value. But we're here for props. Let me just spit those round props here for you guys for Calvin Kattar. Kattar in round 1 plus 900, Kattar in round 2 plus 1100, Kattar in round 3 plus 1500, or even if you want to take Kattar by KO plus 385, I still think that there's some solid value there. All right, go for it. Hit me.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Boston Brigade, as we see the New England cartel, like they've been on hot fire right now. I mean, you go back and you look at Rob Font on the last card of the year of 2020, and it's like you do see a massive improvements out of the whole gym. Really, Randy Costa as well. I mean, they got excellent striking. Mark De La Grate, this goes back to, dude, you've been following sport a long time. Like back in 2006, 2007, all the way to maybe like 2011, this guy was like a hot deal. One of the best striking coaches in MMA. Dana White would routinely bring this guy in and work with whoever. And, he ends up being in Here Comes the Boom with Kevin James, and people really like him. He's a really smart guy if you've ever talked to him. He just hasn't had anybody of that high skill level that's broken out and been a top UFC guy to put him back on the map. He doesn't have Kenny Florian anymore, who's going to be that next guy that's going to break through from him. I mean, now you're seeing it with Rob Font, and Randy Coslin's got a ways to go, but more so than anybody, Calvin Kattar. He's one fight away from a title shot. He looks extremely good, and he's just really coming to his own. When you look at any of his regional scene career fights, it's a decision machine. Like, guy routinely goes to decision. But now you're seeing him just kind of add those extra elements that's giving him a tremendous more amount of pop, that he's going out and he's defeating guys like Ricardo Lamas, guys like Jeremy Stevens, going out there and knocking guys out, and really kind of displaying that you're seeing those improvements in his game. Now, you mentioned a few times, right? Max Holloway's absorbed 900 significant strikes. 765 of those are in the last 6 fights alone, right? Oh. And that dates back to the second Jose Aldo fight. So if you remember, he kills Jose Aldo the first time. Why the fight got rebooked? I don't know. Jose Aldo stepping in for Frankie, I'm pretty sure it was.
That's what it was.
Yeah, he steps in. I don't really care to see this fight again. And even though Max defeats him again the second time, soundly, Jose Aldo actually landed 87 significant strikes. The Ortega fight, which everybody remembers as a one-sided beating, and it was. Oh, man, was it ever. But Brian, still getting his ass kicked, lands 110 significant strikes. Crazy. The Dustin Poirier fight is very, very interesting because he completely gets tuned by Dustin Poirier, right? You mean pillar to post, that's as clear as a 49-46 as you'll ever see in your life, right? But strictly by the numbers, he outstrikes Dustin Poirier in rounds 2, 3, and 4. He outstruck him in 3 of those 5 rounds, and yet soundly lost that fight. And why that is goes back to something you mentioned before. He doesn't really got the power. He's got a lot of good volume, but he's super hittable. And the fact that he doesn't matter if he's hittable, because he hits you 3 times for every time you hit him. But when you're fighting non-strikers, you can get away with that. Frankie Edgar, legend. He's not a striker. He can do everything great, but his base is not striking. Alexander Volkanovski looks like a badass. His base is not striking. Brian Ortega, jiu-jitsu wizard, and certainly working on his hands. And definitely when they fought, not a striking-based guy. Max stands with those guys. Oh, the Lamas fight. He's pointing in the middle of the ring. Fight me, right? Well, you can do that against Ricardo Lamas because he's not a striking-based fighter. He's fought a lot of wrestlers. He's fought a lot of grapplers. And that's the great thing with Max Holloway. He's got awesome takedown defense. And so he keeps the fight standing. And when Volkanovski fails to get him to the ground, it's like, uh-oh, he could be in trouble. But then what happens is Holloway just takes his foot off the gas. He just stops going for it. And as a result, he definitely lost the first fight. And in my personal opinion, he definitely lost the second fight because he lost 3, 4, and 5. Now, the 2 rounds he won easy. And the 3 rounds he lost, very close rounds. And rounds that you can make the argument that he won. I personally thought he lost them. He allowed himself to get outworked. That's going to be a problem here with Calvin Kattar, who, even though he's not, when you look at Holloway, his last 8 fights have been title fights, right? His last 6 fights have gone into the 5 rounds. Like, this guy fights routinely fighting 5-round fights, routinely fighting championship fights. All the experiences in his corner, right? But Calvin just hasn't had the same opportunity to showcase it, right? The Magomed Sharipov fight, it's only a 3-rounder. In the first 2 rounds, Zabit's painting on a perfect performance. He's looking flawless. But Kattar's junkyard dog. He's not going away. He is Boston strong. He is coming at him. He is starting to land strikes. 3rd round, Calvin Kattar's all over this guy, and he wins the round. If that's a 5-round fight, Calvin Kattar becomes the first man in history to dethrone Magomed Sharipov. Would have been a great win. Then you see in the Dan Ige fight. Dan Ige's got excellent cardio. Cardio won him a fight over Edson Barbosa alone, right? The guy keeps going. He's on record signing for EPO injections for Ali Abdelaziz. This guy's not getting tired. Like, Calvin Kattar dropped the 2nd round, in my opinion, and then just like, man, he came on and he pieced him up and he put a lot of damage on him. And so I could see Max winning this fight. He's a legendary champion. He's got great backclass. He's got great experience. But it's hard to wake up and say, I got to get to the gym and get this going. I'm fighting Calvin Kattar. When you weren't doing that, you know, you fight in title fights and you fight Volkanovski and it's another fight. I'm fighting Jose Aldo and I'm fighting Anthony Pettis, the WEC champion, you know, a legendary fighter in his own right. And I'm fighting all of these guys in all these big spots and all these pay-per-view headliners. That's what you get excited for, right? Fighting Calvin Kattar, like, maybe it's not the end-all be-all. Whereas Calvin Kattar, this is a big spot for him. I beat Max Holloway. I solidify myself as the #1 challenger. I get a title fight. I get a title fight versus Alexander Volkanovski. Sky's the limit for me. Who knows what can happen? But I can finally establish myself and put myself on the map. And certainly for dog status, for dog money, I think that he's a live dog. And you know what? One of my favorite sayings clearly is dog or pass. And this is a card. You guys have been hanging out with us for over an hour. Badasses in the comment section. We do always appreciate the support. And if you've been listening this long, like you are a fan, right? You've probably noticed I got a lot of the favorites on this card. I think that it's matched fairly well. I like some of those plus money prop plays, but I am going to side with a decent amount of the favorites. Calvin Kattar is a dog. I think he's got a shot, and I'm going to pull the trigger on that one. So Calvin Kattar. Last thing I want to throw on, and it's not like I love it because the decision, the round props weren't looking good at all, right? Fight completes 1.5 round, 550. That's not good. 2.5 rounds, 310. That's not good. 3.5 rounds, 250. Again, that's not good. You have to take fight goes the distance, which is minus 175. That's not a good price tag. So then I start thinking like you, well, like can Kattar knock this guy out? But like Holloway's Hawaiian, man, and like outside of Mexicans, they just got such good chins, and like he puts it on display. Like he can take one hell of a punch and roll with one hell of a punch, and it's going to take some brilliant technique to knock Max Holloway out. So is it possible? It is possible. On a card full of nice props that I like, am I going to chase a Calvin Kattar KO prop? I'm already being bold, taking him straight up. Yeah. And I'm already getting dog money taking him straight up. I'm not going to be the guy that says Holloway's washed and Kattar's going to knock this clown out. Like that might not happen. I think it's going to be a good fight. It's going to be an excellent fight, worthy of a fight of the night. And I think the fans are going to get, their entertainment value for sure. But give me that underdog. I think I'm going to go with the dog here.
In terms of his method, you're leaning more decision than anything?
Decision more than anything, just because we've seen with Max, he got a great chin, and that, yeah, he'll listen. What more could a human being, an unarmed human being, may I add, do to Max Holloway that Dustin Poirier didn't do to Max Holloway, right? He hit him with some of the absolute filthiest blows you'll ever see in a mixed martial arts contest. And like Max's, not only does he have that cast iron chin, he's got the Hawaiian spirit, man. And it is what it is. He can take a hell of a punch. And as a result, I think if Calvin Kattar is going to win, it's going to be, a 3-2 decision, a 4-1 decision, maybe if he really puts on a career best performance. He doesn't want to go down 3 rounds against Holloway and try to resort on taking him out late. He's just got to go out there, get a quick start, put it on him, and be the superior striker. With Max, he looks like such a fantastic striker, fighting mostly wrestlers and grapplers, as we talked about. And those mostly wrestlers and grapplers have all universally touched him up. They've all hit him. So now you mentioned it. He's taking on Calvin Kattar's 5'11". He's the same size as him. And now he's taking on a guy, with a reach as well. Like, it's not a significant reach advantage. I just mean Calvin Kattar should theoretically be the longer man. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage on him. He should beat him with a punch. He is the crispest guy he's ever fought. He will work the body. Working the body would be a great tool against Max because it would slow him down, which is something you need to do because he just keeps coming. And then last but not least, Max slowing down against Volkanovski in a fight he's in cruise control in doesn't bode well for going 5 hard against Calvin, who, as we mentioned, that persona is Calvin hasn't really fought 5, but it's like what he's shown in the Magomed Sharapov fight and what he's shown in the Dan Ige fight. I like it. And greasy conspiracy theory for you. I want to give you one in the Matt Brown Carlos Condit fight, but it slipped my mind right as we moved on. So I'll give you one here. They're both in Abu Dhabi right now, right? Max Holloway's fought in Canada 3-4 times, and they just released some. Baby. Yeah, they did. Yeah, exactly. It's the 14th island. I forget whatever that UFC Fight Pass thing was recently just called. Right. Yeah, he's in Abu Dhabi rocking like a jacket, like full pants and like a spring jacket. Calvin Kattar's wearing shorts and a t-shirt. It's hot in Abu Dhabi. I've been there. It's the desert. Cools off at night, sure. Most deserts do, by the way. But like with Max, like he's got this like grizzled look to him where it's like he is young still, but he's just got this like, he's been through the ringer, and I don't know if it's a bad weight cut, but he struggled at 45 many of times. He one time took a short notice fight against Khabib at 55 and missed weight and got sick and bailed out. The weight cuts since then have been tough on him, and getting older and less motivated for this fight as opposed to a title fight, it's all bad weight cut related stuff. So him wearing a jacket would mean he's cold, and he's cold because his body's starting to shut down. That's the greasy theory. Anyways, we're talking too long now, but my pick is going to be Calvin Kattar.
No, I love this fight. It's a great fight. And it's a great way for Calvin Kattar to really burst on the scene, in my opinion. And the last thing I do want to touch on this fight is it's crazy how many times Holloway has been rocked, but never dropped. Like Dustin Poirier rocks him at least 3 or 4 times in that fight. Jose Aldo rocks him at least 2 or 3 times in their fights. The guy never drops though. So maybe this is the first time we actually see it, but I'm going with the finish. You're going with the decision for Kattar. It's a great fight. I was hoping that you're going to go with the Max Holloway side of things so we could have a little bit more of a debate here, but it's kind of hard when you agree with your boy. So, all right, let's move things on. Let's get to the our best bets. So let me pull up our beautiful screen that we got ready to go for you guys. Let me pull that up for you right here. There we go. All right, I'll kick things off as always. My first of our 3 favorite bets. I got Buckley via decision. Like I said, when we broke that fight down, that's my favorite prop on this card, plus 265. I think he just trudges forward, throws his big shots, doesn't land the one that really he needs to get Chirico out there, but I think he'll do enough to win a judge's decision. Also mixing the fact that Chirico has never been finished via punches or KO. Next up, I got Brown via decision, another one that I touched on in the co-main event, plus 410. I think he goes out there, grinds out Condit. The easiest game plan you could ever have against anybody is just on Brown now to go out there and execute it and hopefully not die while doing it or get dropped to the body. But I like that plus 410. I think he gets it done via decision. And then lastly, I like Felipe in round 2. I think Tafa will be huffing and puffing by that point, and we'll see Felipe really start to put it on him. Whether it's a takedown with some ground and pound. I even saw somebody float out there the plus 2,100 on Felipe to win this fight via submission. I feel like Felipe is more of a ground and pound kind of seeking guy rather than a submission guy. I believe he is also a blue belt too, but I do think that Felipe in round 2 is a very live spot. All right, Cody, let's go.
Yeah, so kicking it off, I think I'm going to go with it's the Joaquin Buckley over. So yeah, I like this spot, the over under on Chirico. Again, it's the fight starts around 3. So we talk about Buckley. He likes to pace himself out a little bit. He's got that big bomb, but you need an opponent that's willing to go out there and throw stuff on you. Even somebody mentioned in the comment section, a great point. The Consana guy KO, it wasn't like he went out, and it's not an offensive move. He caught a kick and countered. It's a defensive move. Chirico would have to throw a kick in order for Buckley to catch it and do something. So him strictly evading, we're getting to the 3rd round. If he's a little bit tired in the 3rd round and Buckley's like, hey, I got a little bit of gas in the tank and unloads on him, don't matter because the fight just started round 3. That's what we're looking for right here. Minus 110, even money, almost even money. Sign me up for that. Number 2, what we're looking for is the Tafa Felipe goes to decision. Now, again, I know you've got the round 2 prop as well, so I'm going to just spice it up for us that if it doesn't finish in round 2 and it goes to round 3, hopefully Tafa's gas tank holds together, and that's kind of what I'm seeing here, is that if Tafa just is durable enough, Felipe should just lead the dance, land the shots, but ultimately not KO him. Tafa's the KO guy, but Felipe is the superior boxer. He's the rangier guy. He's the longer man. He stays on the outside. He does use that thick Diaz game plan, which is good enough that I think should lead him the day. It's plus 125. I thought it's plus money. I think this fight goes the distance. I went with Tafa Felipe goes the decision. And the last one, I got to take a little bit of risk here. We're going to Imavov inside the distance, plus 230. Again, by KO was like plus 450. It was much better, but I want to play it safe. Imavov does have 4 submissions on his record as well. I honestly think that him and Phil Hawes are going to go out and go hard in the first round. After Phil Hawes fails to knock him out in the first, Phil will start to suck wind. Once he starts to suck wind, Imavov's going to put it on him. Jordan Williams took some big shots. Jordan Williams took some shots that I don't think that Phil Hawes is going to take. And Imavov learned a lot from going 3 rounds and going that kind of pace and throwing out that he hadn't fought in like a year and a half since knocking out Jonathan Minnie in the first round. He needed 3 good rounds and he got 3 good rounds. Expect to see a better version of him here. And I think that should hopefully carry him to an inside the distance victory over one Phil Hawes. And yeah, if that's the case, then plus 230 knockout or submission, I'd be happy with it.
All right. Those are our best 3 props that we got for the card coming up this weekend. Man, am I so glad to be talking fights. Like there's nothing like sitting in this chair, turning on the lights and really getting things going. And I'm happy to do it with my guy, Cody Saftic. All right. So just a reminder, tomorrow we're doing the final weigh-in with the rest of the crew. We got Just Bleed and MMA Prediction Guru coming on with us. And then Monday will be the next Propping You Up stream. Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be doing it for the Wednesday card. Then obviously Tuesday will be the final weigh-in stream for the Wednesday card. And then we're back at it again. Thursday, Propping You Up, 8 p.m. Eastern, and Friday for the big UFC 257 card, we're doing the final weigh-in at 9 p.m. Eastern. All right, Cody, what do you got left to say for these 233 people we have finishing the show with us?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think this is the beginning of the new year, so we definitely appreciate everyone coming in the show tonight. And yeah, hopefully it's something in 2021 that we're going to continue to build, continue to have some momentum on. And yeah, just taking the time to leave a comment, taking the time to hit the like button, all that honestly does go a long way in just adding things to algorithms, but also shows that our employer that there is an interest here. So if you've taken the time to watch the show, just take the extra second to hit the like button. Definitely does go a long way. And then hopefully, yeah, by 2021, if we build enough of a community here, I do envision some cool ideas that we can do for the show and start some contests and get people a lot more involved. But again, it's, baby steps, one thing at a time. So I've come to realize throughout my career that the best way to get the people, it's that saying from that movie, if you build it, they will come. We just got to hit some winners and they will come. The 230 in here, they know what's up. They watched the show last year. For the next group of people, they'll probably tune in after we hit some winning picks. So, yeah, I like what you bring to the table. The Matt Brown one, I'm going to disagree with, but lucky, a little gold nugget for everybody. I will save said greasy theory for tomorrow's show, so you can lock in with the boys. And I got a greasy theory for why Matt Brown is too slow these days. Hint, hint. It's not just because he's 40; it's something else.
Okay. I can't wait to hear that. All right. Is there anything else you want to plug, though? We know you got the Dogger Pass podcast. I believe it already dropped yesterday or the day before. What are you guys doing for the Wednesday card? Are you guys dropping it on Monday? What are you doing? Did you record it yet?
No, yeah, it's the same boat as everybody else. I think we were talking about Sunday, but the problem is that you watch the fights on Saturday, and then come Sunday, you kind of got that hangover, and you might do a little bit of tape studying, but you certainly don't want to shoot a show on the Sunday. So we are going to move it to the Monday, release it Monday night, and then that gives you a couple days before Wednesday. On Wednesday, come in during the day, shoot the Saturday show, go home, watch the Wednesday show. And then, the train rolls on, baby. I mean, this is who we are. This is what we love. And I honestly think that MMA is in for a good 2021. With all these other sports that are kind of, on lockdown, these team sports, and they can't travel and seasons are ending. NFL will be done soon. Baseball can't really seem to get the foot going. Hockey's all over the place, already canceling practices. Dana don't care if you live or die. These cards are going on. And so there'll be a lot more extended viewership. And so, I'm excited to be back, needless to say.
All right, you guys can follow him at CJ Saftic on Twitter. He is always mingling about on the timeline, so make sure you guys go check him out. You guys can catch me at MMA LOTN on Twitter. And I can't wait to do the final weigh-in stream with you guys again tomorrow. We'll see you guys 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, so make sure you guys tune in for that. Thanks for joining us. And on the way out, please hit that like button. Do that for us real quick, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.